Welcome back, everyone, to one of the most, I don't know, can't think of a good description word for a series. Welcome back to the LEGO Robot Combat Week. We had our first episode, about a week ago, not exactly a week ago, but, it was close enough. So, we saw some pretty good robots fight. We saw, some robots get their first win. Some robots get their first loss. A lot of good robots get their first draw. But now we have a very fun fight card, in store for you today. Let's see what we have for today. So, our first fight will be, a former runner-up, Bronco, taking on a heavily, redesigned robot from last season, Witch Doctor. After that, we will have a fight between two promising designs. Extraterrestrial versus Iceberg. And so we also have a very powerful flipper, I believe, which was advertised in the ending of the last season, Zero Gravity. And then they will be taking on former semifinalist Warrior Clan. And then our fourth match is wait a second, it's a new robot, and the only competitor with wheels, which is, of course, named Plow with Wheels. They will be taking on, where are they? They will be taking on Lockjaw, who has underwent a massive redesign from last season. And in our main event, a quarterfinals list from last year, and a favorite who now developed the new self-righting system, Event Horizon. They will be taking on the former and only champion in this season, going into this season, Schrodinger's cat. So, just as a reminder on how the tournament rules work, each robot will be given 2 to 4 fights. The number of fights they get will be dependent on their performance. A robot who is 0-2 and has not performed very well in either of its fights, like they were one hits against not that good opponents, they're not getting a third fight. But the robot who fought two very powerful robots and won, that robot, of course they're getting a third fight. They're probably getting a fourth fight if that happens. Same goes for robots who are undefeated, based on, but their strength of schedule is not good. We're just gonna give them a harder opponent. Then again, apart from those rules, the schedules are mostly randomized. So, Schrodinger's cat over here could be taking on Warhead, which is obviously going to be a win for Stranger's Cat, unless Warhead is able to pull off something huge, but, I doubt that will happen. Still, we're gonna try to avoid that, try our best, but, yeah. So, anyway, the top 12 robots will be getting into a round of 12. Sometimes I mistakenly call it the round of 16, but we have 27 competitors this year, so we definitely don't want to have a big bracket, because then we'll encounter similar circumstances in last season when we had robots in who didn't necessarily deserve to be in, like MOE, Godzilla, and who else? I think Radioactive could have easily not been in there because their fight was terrible, and it was against New Cruelty. Anyway, each of these robots will be looking to win their first fight, in order to get a good start into, and get their, place in the tournament into consideration, for the selection committee. So, without further ado, let's get into our first fight. So, Bronco is kind of a mixed robot. We saw that they had a pretty good starting season, if you don't count a somewhat controversial fight against Earthquake, where, Earthquake just barely, got outrun by the buzzer, and, Bronco, who had been, doing good, up till that point, won the judge's decision. So, we're still reviewing that fight, seeing if it really did beat it, but, that's not what's important right now. Bronco got, the runner-up. They only lost in the finals to eventual champion Schrodinger's Cat. So, Season 2 was a bit rough for Bronco because, Event Horizon came along, and destroyed them. So, since they did not perform really well, and it was against Event Horizon, who back then was just a rookie robot from absolutely nowhere, so, wasn't that impressive. So, they did not receive a wild card, even if they had, because of all the robots getting ties, they wouldn't have even been able to make the tournament. So, they're going up against Witch Doctor. Witch Doctor would, debut in Season 2 and have an unimpressive performance against eventual runner-up Hypershock. They got inverted with just a bit of a push by Hypershock, and that was the fight. So, Witch Doctor is now in a position where they need to prove themselves. They can still be a competitor, and to do that, they made some changes. They now have a self-rider, and to solve the ground problems that were happening earlier, we gave them a wedge. So, we'll see how that'll help them this year. So, without further ado, let's start the fight. I'm gonna skip the intro, because we might not have a lot of time to do this. So, as we know from last episode, the robots have 2 minutes to knock each other out. If they aren't able to do that, then it becomes a draw. So let's get started. Bronco with a good flip there. Witch Doctor with a spinner, which of course does nothing. Bronco with another flip. And Bronco loses its head. Flipper head. Is that what you call it? Well, either way. Witch Doctor now has the advantage when it comes to ground game, unless they go too high with that flipper. Now. Ooh, nice flip there by Bronco. But their reach problems might be hindering their flipping performance. Meanwhile, Witch Doctor, I think, might be pushing too hard, and driving right up Bronco's flipper. Ah! There. Witch Doctor for a brief moment underneath Bronco. That was a good job. Oh no! Now Bronco is under Witch Doctor. Doctor uses its self-rider for stability and pushes too hard once again. And oh, this is good for Witch Doctor. They now have Bronco in an awkward position. Bronco needs to of all the times for Bronco's flipper to break down. But unfortunately, it's the end of the match, so this will be a draw. Witch Doctor, however, will get, should be proud of this performance. They definitely made their path to, the round of 12 a lot more easier with this fight, and good job for Bronco for surviving just exactly long enough to beat the buzzer. Our next fight is between two really well-designed flippers who are also rookies. We have Extraterrestrial versus Iceberg. So, Extraterrestrial, this is a really good robot. They performed extremely well in their exhibition matches, and the reason why is because a robot pushes too hard on them, like we saw Witch Doctor doing against Bronco. They push too hard. They are not getting a second chance, because these arms, they can throw a robot out of the arena in one hit. This robot is capable of ending fights very quickly, and it's also very durable, very hard to damage, and just a second. Alright, sorry for the brief pause. So, Extraterrestrial is going to be facing Iceberg. Iceberg is a small but powerful flipper. Yeah, that's all I can say, except for it's durable. but it has the tendency to get stuck in weird positions that it can't get out of. It's also very hard for it to self-right. It can though, if it tries hard enough. Oh, alright. Let's start the match in 3, 2, 1. Alright. Well, that was quick. And I think that will be a win for Extraterrestrial. The countdown has started. And Extraterrestrial will take this fight. So good job to them. Alright, well, that was a quick fight. Good job to Extraterrestrial, but could have gone a bit longer. Either way, our next fight is between two other robots. Zero Gravity versus Warrior Clan. Zero Gravity, the same thing with Extraterrestrial. This robot, there's almost no chance of defeating it, especially as a robot who wants to do damage to it. No one has done damage to Zero Gravity before. No one. And that's not good because, you'll just ride up its wedge, get onto the flipper, and boom, you're gone. So, it's gonna be very hard for its opponents to defeat it this year. They'll try, but we'll see how successful they are. The only robot I can think of who can beat it as of right now is either Earthquake, Lockjaw, Extraterrestrial, Schrodinger's Cat, Kraken, or Hydra. Other than those robots, I don't think that many of them stand a chance against Zero Gravity. For their opponents, Warrior Clan, they did really well in the first season, but that is because their first fight was against Axel. That one was probably always going to happen. And then, of course, they beat Black Hole. Black Hole beat a very unimpressive opponent as well in the qualifying matches. So they weren't that good of a robot, but they managed to get into the round of 16. No, the round of 8. And then, of course, they lost to Schrodinger's Cat. Not a lot of robots can beat Schrodinger's Cat. Only Hypershock has at this point, so I will give them that. But then they lost to, who was it? Titanium, I think. They lost to Titanium, and I don't think that's excusable. Especially considering they all knocked themselves out. Titanium did not do great. They were a decent robot, but they were definitely not a high tier one. So, our confidence in Warrior Clan is waning. have been waning ever since that fight against Titanium. So we'll see if they can still win fights against Zero Gravity. Honestly, their chances are not good. But we'll let the fight begin in 3, 2, 1. Alright. And big one going straight at Zero Gravity and managing to invert it. That's good. I think the small one is knocked out. Trying to get... Oh, and now... Again, Warrior Clan. Again, Warrior Clan has defeated itself. And the countdown is starting. And Zero Gravity will take a very short win. That was kind of disappointing. We never even got to see Zero Gravity's full flip. And that's also not good for Warrior Clan. They had some decent multi-bot effectiveness, because they were dragging around Zero Gravity, close to getting them inside the pit, but of course they took themselves into the pits, and one of them did, and the others got themselves into weird places. Not impressive. Anyway, our next fight is against two good robots who, we do not know much about how they'll do in this fight, but, here's Lockjaw versus Plow with Wheels. Lockjaw is a very unlucky robot, because last season, qualifying rounds, they got pitted up against Schrodinger's cat. That they actually survived almost to getting to beat the countdown, but they were defeated in the last minutes. Not a lot of robots can go that far with Schrodinger's cat, so it was impressive. We're letting them back in this season to see what they can do, and along with that, we've given them a redesign. This redesign is honestly scary. So I wanted to make the original vertical spinner. I couldn't find it, but it was, as you can see, not invertible, which would create some complications, and it didn't have forks. So what we did to fix that may have been a bad decision, but we added articulating forks to Lockjaw. These articulating forks are overpowered. The only thing that's bad about them is their durability, but they will just they will lift the robot out of the arena. Well, they didn't this time. Bad example, but normally they can really end fights quickly using that method. Of course, we've blocked off the best exit, so it might be harder for them to do stuff with that. So their opponent is Plow with Wheels, which, as you can see, the only robot with wheels. This makes them very fast. It also makes driving hard. They also have a lifter. They're basically dumb. They do absolutely no damage, but they're very durable. we'll see how that helps them, against Lockjaw. The fight will be starting. 3, 2, 1. Alright. Already inverting. Attempting to toss the arena, and Lockjaw's forks are now a bit bent by this. And they're able to do some fun stuff and get Plow out of the arena. So, good job to Lockjaw. Of course, they lost with their forks, so that's not good, but okay. It was a decent showing for both robots. Because Plow didn't really have an option. They were always gonna get lifted up by Lockjaw, and because of their wheels. The question would be, would Lockjaw lose its forks before it successfully gets Plow out of the arena? If that would be the case, then Plow could have easily won. Anyway, it's time for our main event. Event Horizon. This is a robot that has defeated many powerful enemies. They have Bronco defeated. They have Shockwave defeated. Although their win against Shockwave was questionable. And it technically wasn't a win against Shockwave, because Shockwave was using its alternative design. But that design's retired, by the way. And of course they lost to Bite Force, who would be the eventual champion. But the robot still shows some promise. Their little horizontal hammer thing at the back, that really does some damage, and it can also knock robots over, so that's good. The spinner is durable if their opponent is high enough to reach it, and they have a new self-righting mechanism using these chains, so this will solve most of their problems, because all of their losses, all of them, have been due to inverting. So we'll see how they do in this fight. They can prove themselves once again. And then we have Schrodinger's cat. Schrodinger's cat has had another redesign since it is not the same as it was in the first episode of the season, because that one does not have a good ground game. Schrodinger's cat started as an idea of like, what if Mancatter had its self-righter as the primary weapon and didn't have a spinner? Of course, I couldn't have made a spinner because we were very short on materials at that time. So I made Schrodinger's cat, and no one expected it to do as well as it did, but it did well. It defeated Destruction, got an upset against Cylinder, and it defeated Warrior Clan and Bronco to get the championship. And I think I still have that version here. Of course, it's missing its lifter, but that's because it had been used in the new version. Anyway, the old robot then went into season 2, a heavy favorite. Just barely beat Lockjaw and avoided the draw. Which of course, lowered their seed in the top 16, so they reached the semifinals with wins against Lockjaw, a rematch win against Cylinder, and a pretty obvious win against Radioactive, although Radioactive put up a fight. And then they suffered their first and only loss in their career history. That was against Hypershock. Hypershock would become the runner-up. Schrodinger's Cat would become third place with a win against Wedge, and Bite Force would become the champion. So then Bite Force, of course, is not in the season, so Schrodinger's Cat, even with its redesign, is now the only champion here in this season. So they're going to be going in with a lot of status, and of course that means they're going to get better opponents, but we'll see how they do. Let's start the battle. 3, 2, 1. Alright. Big hit by Schrodinger's Cat. And Event Horizon is stuck in the pit, but they managed to get out in their chain. Oh no! And Schrodinger's Cat's lifter is gone. That will complicate things. Now, Event Horizon has perfect opportunity to invert Schrodinger's Cat. This time, it's Schrodinger's Cat being the one at risk of inversion. A lot of fighting here. A lot of fighting here in the halfway point. Schrodinger's Cat basically sits on Event Horizon. Gets their chains tangled up, so that's a problem. While they're doing that, they manage to invert them. At this point, Schrodinger's Cat is just trying to waste the clock. Event Horizon is trying to get a knockout as soon as possible. Ooh! There goes half of Schrodinger's Cat's face. Of course, that's not a new feature. We've seen that all throughout Schrodinger's Cat's career. But at this point, they're really at their weakest. Event Horizon could get a pretty good... Unfortunately, we are out of time. But, wow. That was really good for Event Horizon. They have now proven themselves to be a much bigger threat. Wow. Yeah, if that fight had gone any longer, Schrodinger's Cat would be doomed. If Event Horizon had kept Schrodinger's Cat there instead of gone in for another fight, for another slap, Event Horizon would have won. That's impressive. And I know a draw is a draw, but it's looking a lot more like Event Horizon won that, especially because Schrodinger's Cat had high expectations going in. But yeah, that's all for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see what our next episode brings in the next episode.